back, listeners, to the Mindful Living podcast. I'm your host, Sana, as always, and today, in this episode, we are diving into a topic that affects almost all of us, so many of us: weight, blood sugar imbalance, and the modern day struggles with diabetes. Now, we often hear about these issues in a way that feels, well, clinical. But what if I told you there is a deeper, more intuitive approach to healing? Today, we are exploring how Ayurveda, an ancient system of medicine, can offer a more holistic, sustainable way to regain balance and reclaim our health. And who better to guide us through this than Victor Briere, an Ayurvedic doctor and co founder of the International Institute of Ayurveda? Well, listeners, let me share a bit about Victor. He's a gifted pulse leader, meaning he can literally feel what's going on in the body by reading the pulse. And his approach isn't just about symptoms, it's about getting to the root cause of imbalance. So, with that, Victor, welcome to the show. And it's an absolute honor having you with us.
Thank you so much. I look forward to the chance to talk about something that is growing and growing every year, and that's not what we want.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more, Victor. So, m- moving to the discussion about Ayurveda. So, when we talk about Ayurveda and modern medicine. So, Ayurveda sees health differently compared to modern medicine. So, can you throw some light on that for all of us?
Yeah, definitely. So, Ayurveda, for those who don't know, has been around for at least minimum 5,000 years, probably more like 10,000 years. It just started being recorded in written form about 5,000 years ago. And it has been around that long and is still practiced today because it works so well. And what happened is in the more modern time, we when we switched to the industrial and digital era,
Mhm.
the population was finding, getting advancements in certain things, but basically the population started looking for faster and faster ways to be healthy.
Yeah.
And because of that, it created a demand. The demand was, give me something I can do to not deal with my symptoms that doesn't interfere with my lifestyle. And
Mm.
that, in essence, created the birth of allopathy. So we hear the story 1,000 times, especially in the United States, where I'm originally from. Uh, you know, "Oh god, I went to the doctor and I only got 5 minutes. They didn't even look me in the eyes. They didn't even listen to my problems." And on the one hand, that's terrible, and I feel bad about that, and I myself never do that to a client. But what we have to understand is the reason that exists is because of the demand that was created by the population for wanting quick fixes. And then,
Mhm.
of course, profit got involved, and we have the system we have now. So while allopathy is very focused on efficiency and tamping down symptoms as
Mhm.
fast as possible, Ayurveda is focused on understanding the causal forces involved in any given pathology, every step leading from the causes to the symptoms, and how to address each layer of the issue. So it's much more thorough, but it takes much more effort on behalf of the client.
Hmm. So, it takes its own time. It's not like a quick fix.
It's not that Ayurveda can't act fast, it's just a bit more demanding when it comes to lifestyle changes than allopathy is. So, for example, if I were to go to a doctor and I had high blood sugar and I was overweight, and the doctor, the MD, diagnosed me with diabetes, he would probably, in most cases, say, "Here, take metformin." That whole process takes about 10 minutes. And then I go to the pharmacy, I get my prescription for metformin, and in the morning I pop a pill and my blood sugar goes down. Um,
Yeah.
that is addressing the symptom. It is in no way addressing the causes. If I find a good allopathic doctor, they might spend 2 or 3 minutes with me telling me, "Hey, you need to change your diet. Don't eat junk food." But
Uh-huh.
in Ayurveda, that process would take, we would sit and talk for hours and hours and hours over a span of time to really cultivate the right diet, exercise routine, lifestyle habits, go through emotional, motivational issues that are stopping the person from even wanting to take on the healthy lifestyle habits, because we all know that's not very easy to do, and really work through it with a person. That is the role of an Ayurvedic physician.
Okay.
So there's a huge difference. Unfortunately, I just came back from India. I go to India every year.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, in India, a lot of Ayurvedic doctors are starting to practice Ayurveda like it's allopathy. So you go in and see the Ayurvedic doctor and they give you some herbs like their pills or like their allopathic pills. And unfortunately, this is not a good trend for India, which is the birthplace of Ayurveda, because that is never how Ayurveda was intended to be practiced.
I really wish. And that makes so much sense, Victor, because I completely agree with you. Whenever we go to the doctor, we are often just handed a prescription, or we are told that you eat better, you exercise, and that's it. But that the root cause of the problem, it doesn't really explain, because every one of us have a unique system in there. um, we have unique bodies function. So I think that's a really that it itself explains the difference between Ayurveda and the modern medicine. And let's try to bust some misconceptions here. uh, so Victor, skeptics might say that Ayurveda lacks the scientific validation that modern medicine has. So how do you address these concerns, about it being unproven?
Well, the first thing I'd probably say to someone I'm in a conversation with about that is, well, have you ever tried it? Have you ever actually tried applying Ayurvedic principles to your life? And of course, the answer is going to be no, because they're skeptical. Um, so that's my first thing is I just say, why don't you just try it and see if it works? Or here are, 100 examples of people I've used only Ayurvedic principles with who have recovered from illness. And,
Mhm.
to then look at me and say, "Well, I don't see some journal report, in some scientific journal that tells me exactly how that happens in allopathic terms." The burden of proof's on them at that point. I don't really feel a need to defend myself. However, there are tons of articles and scientific studies done now about the efficacy of Ayurveda. There's
Mhm.
not a lack of them. You can do a Google search and find tons of them. And so at this point, that's just not true. There is scientific evidence to the backing the principles of Ayurveda.
Hmm. Makes sense, Victor. Okay, now talking about the most crucial aspect, the most important point, topic. Uh, when it comes to weight gain and blood sugar imbalance, what does Ayurveda say about the real cause?
Great question. So yes, that's what everyone wants to know. So each person is going to have a number of causal factors involved in why they developed the disease that they developed and the way it's developed in their body personally. So
Mhm.
there might be 10, 12, 20 factors contributing to any given pathology. But let's just stick with diabetes, type 2 specifically. Ayurveda lays out the most common or most impactful factors, and there are two that we have direct control over. One is overeating. Now,
Mhm.
that's a whole topic in and of itself. What counts as overeating? Um, and the second thing is the desire to be sedentary. And this is different from just being sedentary. So if I have an office job, I might end up being sedentary just because I sit in a chair all day. But what happens with the pathology of diabetes is actually there's a psychological component born in the mind, because
Mhm.
in Ayurveda, all diseases are psychosomatic. There's a psychological component born in the mind, in which the person starts to develop a desire to be sedentary. So any opportunity that they get to become sedentary, they take. And this is very misunderstood. People say, "Oh, you're lazy." But that's a very derogatory way of talking to someone who needs help.
Yeah.
They're not lazy. They've developed a situation in which the mind body is not functioning like it should. The metabolism has been suppressed, and so that creates a difficulty with motivation, specifically for physical movement. They might be very mentally active. As a matter of fact, often they are very mentally active, but they're physically sedentary. So so these are the two primary causes, not the only causes. Of course, there's a ancestral component to the whole situation. But those are usually just set up predispositions, not guarantees that someone's going to develop diabetes. And the things that we can really work on are, I'll repeat them for the listeners.
Mm.
One is the eating habits, specifically overeating. And two is regaining that will to physically move, which is easier said than done. Most people think, it's New Year's time. I'm going to make my resolution. Oh, I'm going to the gym, right? We've all been there, right?
Yeah.
Only to realize after 2 weeks that's a distant memory. So what that tells a Ayurvedic doctor is, okay, this isn't as simple as people like to make it seem. Motivating oneself to physical movement when there's a disease pathology going on is actually a very nuanced and complex process.
It's really good sense. So it's basically, let's say that um, two people with the same condition, um, let's say pre-diabetes, they could actually need completely different approaches.
That's correct, because the causal forces might have similar archetypal patterns, but in that person's individual life, and
Mhm.
that's what people need help with, right? It's easy to go online and read an article that speaks to 20,000 people at once. But that that doesn't deal with a single person who is suffering. That doesn't deal with their real life problems today, right? They need help navigating today. And with diabetes, it is a day to day thing that needs navigation, right? It's what am I going to eat today? What am I going to do today that's going to move me in the right direction? Because the disease probably developed over 20, 30, 40, 50 years. So it's not going to disappear in one afternoon.
And also, let's talk about Ayurveda in details. So, uh, right now, I mean, there are some efforts put in the direction of making Ayurveda more simpler and approachable for people, common people, and what I have actually learned from there, that there are body types in Ayurveda, or in Hindi we say it as dosh. So, can you explain, Victor, what these body types are, and how exactly do they influence our health, metabolism, and even our risk for conditions like diabetes or weight imbalance?
Yeah, absolutely. Ayurveda describes, again, archetypes of physical bodies that behave differently from one another, and that each person kind of fits loosely into one of these archetypes. However, I will say that the real principle in Charaka Samhita, which is the original text of Ayurveda,
Uh-huh.
is that no two individuals have the same recipe for their fundamental body blueprint. So
Hmm.
everyone truly has a unique system. We might fit into categories, but the Ayurvedic doctor should not be fooled and by just labeling someone in a category and then saying, "Okay, you're in this category, so do this." That's considered a mistake in Ayurveda.
Yeah.
Um, but there are tendencies. So the three doshas are Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. And
Mhm.
And those are biological things, biological forces that every human has all three in different proportions. So we each have a unique recipe, so to speak, of those three ingredients. And depending on the predominance of one or two of those ingredients, we get our what's called prakruti, which is the place our body wants to be naturally to be healthy.
Yeah.
And if we move away from our prakruti via our life choices, we start to get ill. So if I have a vata dominant prakruti, if I do the things to be healthy, it's going to look like one thing. If I have a kapha dominant prakruti, it's going to be different. If I have a vata dominant prakruti and I do the things a kapha dominant prakruti does to be healthy, I'll get sick. But it will make the kapha dominant prakruti healthy. So this gets boiled down, and if you do a Google search, gets boiled down into a basic principle, which is you can't treat everyone the same.
Yep.
Not everyone should be taking ashwagandha. Ashwagandha is going to help one person, but it will harm another person depending on their prakriti.
Yes.
Right. So the problem we face in the modern day is that when a company wants to make money selling herbal supplements, they say take ashwagandha, it helps with stress, and that's their offer. But this is completely against the principles of Ayurveda. So it's not good. We don't want to do that.
Hmm. Absolutely. That's such an important point to mention here. Really, really. Thanks, Victor, for sharing that. Um, Now, moving on, another, I think, very important concern to address here that uh, if I talk about India, then India is now gradually becoming the diabetes capital. And globally, if even if I speak, it is skyrocketing. So, why do you think, what do you think, what exactly is wrong with how we are addressing diabetes in the modern healthcare scenario?
I don't think modern healthcare is helping people with the root causes of diabetes. They're putting a band-aid on it by giving medication. So that will reduce symptoms for a time, typically. But and then that's considered quote unquote managed. But the forces generating the pathology are not being managed at all. Those mainly being overeating and a desire to be sedentary. So so it's like if you're trying to clean your house and all you do is, sweep the dust off the table onto the floor and you don't do anything else, yeah, sure, the table looks good on the surface, but the house is still completely dirty. So, yeah, so the modern approach is sweeping the dust off the surface of the table. The Ayurvedic approach is not only do you sweep the dust off the surface of the table, but then you vacuum and mop the floors. So
That's
that's not happening. That's not happening in the modern health system.
mm, well, okay. Okay, so another, I think, a bit of a contradictory perspective on Ayurveda. So, um, we would say, some people would say that, you know, uh, I just want a simple solution, and I don't want to even look into Ayurveda because it's just too complicated. So, what would you say to that person?
I would say a few things to that person. So the first thing I do is I try to start talking to that person, have a conversation with them about their life. They're a human being. They have a life. And it's their life is complex. So, I say, okay, but really I think the real issue is that they're not afraid of complexity because trust me, they probably do many complex things all the time.
Mhm.
The issue is more of a fear of the things they're gonna have to change and how they're gonna feel when they change them. Like giving up their favorite junk food or whatnot, right? So I would try and have a conversation with them about where's their real fear about becoming healthy. And these are legitimate fears because they will have to make changes if they want to reverse their pathology.
Mhm.
Uh, and but it's only scary at the beginning. Once you start feeling better, it's wonderful. And so I try to have a conversation with them there. And also it's not all that complex in the sense that the advice is relatively simple, but actually executing on that advice is not well, not might not be that complex, but it is difficult. It
Mhm.
takes some oomph, it takes support, and it takes repetition.
Yeah.
So that's how I would try and have a compassionate conversation with them to try and understand what they're actually afraid of. A lot of people are straight up just afraid of being hungry. They're
Yeah.
afraid of that feeling of hunger. They'll do anything not to feel the feeling of hunger.
Yes. Yes.
Right. And food is used as a stress management tool
Yeah.
because because it's good at it, right? If I eat my favorite pastry, I feel better after. But the long-term consequences of that are, without being dramatic, they're deadly.
They're really deadly. I mean, and especially those midnight snacks. That is so, so. I mean, I have an anxiety for this. I even feel anxious to think about it that, you know, just if the clock strikes 12 and then I feel hungry, what will happen to me? So I completely agree with you.
Yeah, exactly. And what I've seen time and time again in the clinic when I'm helping people with diabetes is if they can make it through the first 2 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
usually they go all the way. So you're talking about if you just wanna break that down for yourself, if you're a listener, if you can go through 2 weeks of kind of, "Oh god, this is really hard." If you can make it through 2 weeks of that, you can live the rest of your life feeling 50, 75, 100% better than you do today. So you gotta ask yourself, is that worth it? Is 2 weeks of discomfort worth 20, 30, 40 years of feeling way better?
Mm. Wow. Great. That's a great, great question. I think I would encourage all of our listeners to do a bit of self introspection on this question. If they're really doubtful or skeptic uh, about uh, being aware or acknowledging Ayurveda. Also, before we wrap up, Victor, I guess if someone is struggling with weight and blood sugar issues, what's the first thing today they should focus on?
The first thing that they can I give you 2? Is that okay?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
We can give more than two.
Alright, the first thing that they should do is they need to start journaling or recording their eating habits. So I'd say the first thing you do is to become aware of how much and what you're actually eating and when. When that eating is happening, which is just as important as what you're eating.
Mm.
The second thing that they should do is do not even attempt to do this by yourself. You need help. You need professional help with an expert who is really good at helping you navigate through the multitude of challenges you'll face in creating a healthy lifestyle. That's why we exist is we've done the work for you so you don't have to spend 6 years in school learning about all the ins and outs of this. So seek help. And I know some people say, oh, I don't want to spend the money. But then I ask you to reflect on how much is it going to cost you to be sick for the rest of your life? And I promise you, the number is 100-fold more. It's very expensive to be sick. So, yes, you're going to have to put up a little bit of money to get professional help now, but that will save you thousands and thousands and thousands of rupees, dollars, whatever you deal in.
Of course. 2 weeks of investment in time and a few bucks as money.
Yeah, and a few bucks to save your life and your bank account. Let's
Mm.
not forget that.
And your savings. Lovely.
Yeah.
Great, Victor. So, if our listeners would like to connect with you to embark on this journey, how they can do that?
I'm very easy to get in touch with. You can always send me an email at victor@iiayurveda.com, which I'm sure you'll put in your comments section. You can go to my website, which is www.iiayurveda.com, and just send me an email, reach out to me. I'll get back to you within a day.
Great. We'll have all the details mentioned in the show notes for our listeners. And Victor, thank you. Thank you so much for spreading this awareness, sharing the right information. I guess this is the most important, first step that should be taken. Thank you so much. And to all of our listeners, if you connected with this conversation and if you resonate with the insights shared by Victor, do make sure to connect with him. You can refer to all the links in the show notes. And thank you to everyone for tuning into the Mindful Living podcast. And I would like to leave one question to all of you. What's one small change you are inspired to make after this episode? Do let me know. And as always, stay mindful, stay curious, and I'll see you next time on the Mindful Living podcast. Thank you.